I'm Andrew Sherman. I'm a Texas transplant who has always been in pursuit of art as a career. I've played in bands, pursued an acting career in Hollywood, but I found it behind the lens of a camera here in Dallas, Texas. I was born in New York, I've lived in Chicago, Los Angeles, Austin, but I love Dallas. There's a magical artistic scene in Dallas that mostly goes unnoticed to the outside world. This podcast is focused on what makes it so special and the people who make it thrive artistically. If you don't live here, and even if you do, you might not have heard of them. This is the Dallas Famous Podcast.
So who you gonna be? Who you gonna be when you're all grown up? Who you gonna be? Who you gonna be when you're all for us? Yeah.
This week on the Dallas Famous Podcast is Maureen Womack. Maureen is a native Dallasite and the woman behind Rabbit Hat Promotions, a boutique PR agency that focuses on artistic types and has clients ranging from record labels to authors to musicians and everything in between. Maureen is also a painter and has her work showing in galleries all around town. For me, the discovery of this episode was learning that Maureen built her amazing businesses and painting career after being a full-time mom and raising kids, being out of the workforce for a while. Maureen is as inspiring as she is humble, and I really enjoyed sitting down with her. I hope you dig this one as much as I did. Welcome back to the Dallas Famous Podcast. See, I'm going to edit that out already. See, it's like very casual. We've got Maureen Womack. So let's start off with, we'll just tell people who you are. First of all, you're a painter, right? Visual artist, is that how you'd say it?
Yes.
Okay. And you have Rabbit Hat Promotions.
Correct.
And that's sort of a boutique PR firm, but it's more than that, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, how is it more than that?
So Rabbit Hat is, I would call it communications, marketing, special events, project management.
Okay.
In a nutshell. But I only work with clients in the creative industries.
Okay.
So all of my clients are either in the music, film, or art sector. I've also worked on a book. Mm-hmm. I've had clients reach out to me, banks and jewelry stores, and I'm like, I can't help you. I love working with creative people, and that's just kind of in me. And wrangling creative personalities is really my favorite thing. So really my passion is having these people's dreams come true, me helping them. Yeah. So my mission for Rabbit Hat Promotions is I want to get people up on stages and down red carpets. That's what I want to do.
That's a nice way
So
to
I don't
say
need
it.
to be in the limelight, which is funny that I'm here because I never sit in this seat.
Right.
My clients sit in this seat. So it's funny that I'm here, but that's what I do. I want to build creative brands for people or festivals or venues, whatever anybody kind of needs me to do. So it's
Sure.
Yeah.
That's cool. Now I have a million questions. I want to go back though. Well, okay, let me go really far back. First of all, you're Texan,
Yes.
Dallasite?
Correct.
Okay.
I grew up in Dallas.
Excellent.
Went to the University of Texas in Austin. We're a big Longhorn family. And I studied advertising. I got an advertising degree like 100 years ago, right? Then I married my college sweetheart and quickly had 3 babies and didn't work. So I started in the advertising world. That's kind of where I grew up, my beginning of my career, but I didn't do it very long. And I raised these 3 kids. So 20 years of not working.
Huh.
So 2016, my life got a little dark, kind of spiraled down. My final child went away to school. She went overseas to school. Then my mother got sick and my marriage started falling apart. So that was a really dark time for me and a little terrifying because I could make sandwiches and organize a bake sale like no other, but that is not a marketable skill that's going to go well on an HR department. So I was really panicked about what I was going to do. And at that time, I ran into an old friend of mine, Trey Johnson. Do you know Trey?
I've heard of Trey.
Yeah. So he's legendary singer-songwriter in Dallas. He was the front man for Sorta, wildly successful. He passed last year. So just a year in January, we just had his anniversary. Anyway, he was a dear friend of mine, and he helped raise my kids in that he was a music teacher. So he's a rock and roll guy. And so all my kids, was rock school. And then we lost touch. I ran into him during this period of my life, kind of, talked to him about what was happening. And he said, well, I'm starting a record label. So why don't you just come hang out with us? So I was like, right on. And so I was with them at the very beginning of State Fair Records.
Right.
Very
Okay.
early on.
Cool.
I mean, I got them their logo and set up their social media accounts. And I didn't really know what I was doing. I had been doing school auctions, but I knew how to wrangle people. I knew how to wrangle kids, which is kind of like wrangling artists.
A lot like it, actually. In fact, sometimes kids are more reasonable.
So I love that. I love working with artistic people, and I don't care if they're knuckleheads or not, because they are bringing so much joy and beauty to the world. I will put up with the fact that they don't know where their logo is and they don't have $5 for the valet. Like, I don't care about that. I'm so happy to keep them on track. So it was a really perfect fit. And it was a crazy time. It was terrifying and thrilling because I did not know what was going on. And I was going through the MBA school with Trey Johnson teaching me about the music business. Maybe a few weeks after he hired me, he handed me this book. I don't know if you've seen that Donald Passman book. It's like everything you need to know about the music business.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Everyone's got it. It's
Of
like
course.
the music Bible. So he handed me that and said, okay, well, catch up. And so I did. I dove in. I had nothing else to do at that point, and I had nothing to lose. So he brought me to every meeting. I was introduced to everyone in the music business, and they were quite engaging and warm and supportive. And so that was kind of the beginning of Rabbit Hat.
That's cool. I feel like a label not in Texas maybe wouldn't have been as nice,
Well, I can't say that for sure,
Yeah.
but I will speak highly of, and specifically North Texas. I feel like the Dallas community, this music industry, it changed my life. And everyone they could not have been more supportive. And people would say, like, here's my attorney. Don't attorneys charge you like $500 an hour? Like, he would jump on a phone call with me, and like, I didn't know how to write a proposal. So people were like, let me read it for you, bump it up. You need 10%. Like, I cannot believe how much direction and guidance I got and support. Like, you got this. So it was, like I said, terrifying and thrilling at the same time.
That's a great group of people to get started with. I love those guys. Like,
Totally
whoever I
agree.
work with any of that label. Okay, interesting. So how was painting happening at this point, or were you had that been on the side as well?
So I've always been sort of artistic. My parents would have called me artsy. Everything about my life, probably. And so I sort of did it as a child. Then I went to the university, but I went sort of on the account service side. I never really believed in my own skills, so I didn't have any formal training as an artist. Then I graduated. Then when I was raising my kids, I went back and just took classes at the university. I didn't even get a second degree or anything, but that's how interested in it I was. And then when I was raising my kids, I did have time. So I was painting, and I started sort of a painting career. I had a few shows. But then when things got dark again, the paints and the canvases and the brushes all went into storage. I sort of forgot about it. And then during the pandemic, and, when I had to like pay my rent, painting was a luxury at that point. I couldn't even. So when the pandemic happened, I lost both my parents. So that was
Wow.
that was a double whammy. I hadn't really gotten through the first bit, and that happened. And my boyfriend at the time, my current fiance, said, why aren't you painting? Like, aren't you a painter? What are all these paintings on our walls? Like, these are yours, right? And so I took a leave of absence from the job that I was working at and immediately found a studio, got a website, got a logo, because that's what I do for other people. I'm like, I certainly know how to start a creative business.
Right.
And so that's pretty recent that I kicked it back in. But again, I had a lot of contacts, and then all my friends, they have money now, so they're buying original art.
That's great.
So I still consider my painting business my side hustle. Maybe one day my marketing business will be my side hustle and painting will be my full-time, but I really need both.
Sure.
I really need the balance of both.
I love the duality because, with the painting, you're promoting yourself. Not that you're promoting yourself, but it's your art. It's like there's nobody else involved. And then, most people are just doing that one side where they're promoting their art or they're working on their art. And the fact that you do that in addition to like your whole business is promoting other people is really interesting and cool to me. You know, like so you said you only deal with artistic types, but like, how do you choose clients in that range? Like, what's some of your, you know?
Well, to be honest, at the beginning, I couldn't really be picky. I had to pay my rent. So anybody that came to me, I was going through the school of like, sure, let's try this. And it's such a wide variety of people came to me. So I had state fairs where I started and kind of got my sea legs. Is that the expression?
I think so. Yeah.
I'm famous for like botching cliches. So I got a little sturdy, and I had, you know, all these introductions with Trey, and Trey was very like, go find some more, let's do this. So that's kind of how Rabbit Hat started, because I basically started with State Fair, and then State Fair became my client. And then I had previously been sitting on the board of Dallas Film. So they brought me on, and I started doing special events, client services, corporate sponsorships with them. So then I met more people. So then I had filmmakers approach me, and can you help me promote my film? I had some interesting like musicians. So Adam Hood was one of my clients. Well, he's very well known. He doesn't need me to find him anything, but he needed me to do a social media. But then I would have like a young artist come to me and say, can you just help me step into this Dallas music scene? So I would bring him on as a client and introduce him to producers and explain to him how the merch works and help him find somebody to design his logo and get his headshots taken. So it really just depends on what the needs are. So I'll do as little or as much as is needed. So like I said, I'm not that picky. Now as I'm getting older, you just need to be nice.
Right.
And you have to have realistic expectations.
Sure.
Like I said, I love working with creatives, but they have to have some kind of a support system themselves. I can't carry them. And they have to have some kind of grit, you know.
Right.
It's rough.
Yeah, oh God, I'm so happy to not be pursuing music these days.
Yeah.
It seems just like such a hard task. I mean, I don't care how good you are. Like, it's about getting it to people, and what the competition is so steep. Just in Dallas, it's steep. It's cool too. It sounds almost like for some clients you're like a mentor, and other ones don't need that as much. Social media, oh my gosh, that's like my nightmare.
Yeah, it's rough.
Do you have people help you when you do that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, during the pandemic, I passed off Adam Hood as my client because it was, so the pandemic was tricky, obviously. And people just nobody was going anywhere. So they were trying to like do concerts in their basement. So social media became more important really. But it really was hard for me to take money from people at the time because nobody was making any money.
Sure.
They were, you know, actually working on tips, Venmo tips. So I kind of passed that. I have someone that works for me, and I passed that client on to her. And so whenever I can do social media, and I have a lot of opinions about what it should look like and what's the audience, but like following the analytics is just so not me. So I definitely have people that are skilled.
I mean, I don't want to sound ageist, but I feel like we've aged out. Like, you have to be super young to be on top of that. I mean, maybe you don't, but I feel like if you don't, then you have to focus all your energy on that.
Yeah. So, and I feel like that's a really good job if you want to break into the music industry. So that's one of the first things I tell people who are like, you know how to do social media? Take a class, because especially about the analytics, like when are you supposed to be posting and how many and what's the hashtag? That's the boring part, but that's also the important part.
Yeah.
And the venues that I've worked with, they look at their social media numbers. They matter. We can say it doesn't matter. It actually does matter.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate because some of it's just weird, but it's something you can't ignore.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's like half of it almost these days, and which sucks because, you know, it used to be you're a musician. I don't even want to talk to the press. I don't want to deal with, you know, now it's like, well, there's that. You still have to do that. And now you have to either be on your social media or have someone else maintaining it, one or the other. I used to tell bands, I was like the analogy of like, okay, so you've got this friend who plays a little guitar, but he's not great. Would you put him in your band? No. So then why would you do your own social media? You don't know what you're doing.
Absolutely.
You know? So
that's why, and a lot of artists are terrible at self-promotion.
Yeah.
And I get it. That's another reason I like artists. They just want to be musicians. They just want to jam with their friends.
Yeah, I mean, and I get it. Like some musicians, it's like it's counterintuitive to be out there promoting themselves because it ruins that that image that they're creating. And yeah, I'm all for a team, for anybody that can afford it, you know.
Well, let's just as the expression we have in my family, let's trust your paid professionals. Like, you do what you do and let me do what I do.
Yeah.
But also, I'm not a full-blown publicist, so I can hire you a publicist. I'm good at getting teams together. If you're trying to get on CBS This Morning, I can't get you on CBS This Morning.
Right.
But I know a bunch of people that can.
Cool.
And it takes that everybody doing their part.
Right.
But again, even you never know for sure. I mean, it's talent and it's luck.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Living in LA, you know, sometimes at the time I was like, why are these people succeeding? But it's because that machine's behind them and they're also ready for it, both.
Right.
You know, so I mean, like as a musician or whatever kind of artist, you have to be doing your work too, you know. Let's go back a little bit to the painting. Early influences of painters?
Well, I love art history. So that's really where I spent a lot of time. Because I never really believed I had any hand skills, I dove into art history. So I've been a docent at the Dallas Museum of Art for 12 years.
A docent?
I give tours.
Oh, cool.
I teach mostly kids, mostly 10-year-olds is my specialty, fourth grader.
Like a school, like field trip?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
So I give 10-year-olds, introduce them to the museum, which I love that so much.
Yeah.
And I keep telling my kids, do not let me, because right about April or May, I'm like, okay, I'm done. But then you have the summer off, and then August, I can't wait to get them back. So to introduce kids to art, to a museum, they've never even, some of them will never go to a museum. You know, it's a big variety of economic, all kinds of different socioeconomic groups. And I absolutely love that job. So I love art and art history. Every time I step into the museum, I just kind of get a wave of. So when I decided to go back after the pandemic, I started paying more attention to all of that. That's all connected to me. So the influences of just every time I walk into the museum, I think like, oh, that I can use that for myself. I never brought it in that way. It was like I was a doodler and then I loved art history, but now I feel like I'm putting it together and very inspired by like when people are in front of their TV at night, I'm scrolling through art,
Cool.
images. Yeah. And that's it's not dissimilar to what I'm doing with marketing my clients because I have galleries reach out to me and then I'll reach out to an artist. So I have this whole other art community. I have a studio in North Dallas at Goldmark Cultural Center, and it's an old abandoned office building. Very 1960s. It's very Mad Men-ish, this building. They didn't do anything to it. It's like an old beat up art building. And all these little offices are art studios. So I'm surrounded by these incredible, again, they're goofy artists, just like the musicians but they don't know anything about my other life. So we walk in and we talk about oil paints and we support each other and call this gallery and someone came by and saw your art. So it's similar because it's the same kind of person, but it's all visual and they're all wacky, and I love that. So
it's interesting to me how segregated the two communities can be. I mean, there's a chunk of artists that are not fine art artists that will, like D. Belmar Company where I work a lot, they have, actual galleries with actual artists, but it's not, high end, high price because it's not the right venue for that. But there's those artists but then there's a whole lot, because I've done some stuff with the Observer and I went to an opening and I was just like, wow, this is a whole other universe that's right in the same space that we are.
Totally. And so my studio, this is what I love about that studio, that center is sometimes there are art centers, you have to send them a portfolio, and if you're good enough, we'll let you in. This is, you can be crocheting hats for your granny and you can have a studio. We don't care what you do. You just have to be an artist, working artist. Or you can also use it as like a gallery space. You can just show your art there. So I am in a suite with 3 ceramists. So I have 3 potters with me and I'm the painter. The guy next to me is selling his paintings for $25,000. So it is everywhere. It's the guy that wants to just, do anime. And then it's the guy that is shipping things that cost $20,000. So I love that too. So it's all very mixed. And very supportive. We are all, nobody's, turning their nose up at anybody else.
It's interesting because my thought was like, why are they separated, the fine art and the others? And I was thinking because maybe they're snobby, but it sounds like that's not what it is. It's just they're not exposed to each other, maybe.
I mean, I think there are, like in any industry, there's the snobby. And I was invited to go look at other art communities. And I went to like a happy hour, and I came home and thought, it felt sort of like, well, how much are you selling? And I was like, I don't think these are my people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just love to just have these wacky people come in and go, we're doing this. And I don't know. I love that community so much. I really do.
It's great. It's great that you make money with the art without it being a focus. I'm not saying it would ruin it, but I mean, I feel like the pressure of, I need to sell this many paintings this month sounds like kind of hard to do.
It is. It is hard to do. It's just like being a musician. But the rent of the art studio is very reasonable, which is super helpful. And I'm selling enough.
Are you painting there or are you just displaying there?
Only painting.
Oh, I see.
I don't have a gallery space. I have people that I show my pieces in some galleries, but that is really a workspace. However, they do these big art walks twice a year, which has been great because people love that. They love to go into art people's studios. So we just open them up. And I have met so many people. There's 2 buildings, and they really know what they're doing up there. And so the weekend before the art walk, this building and all the artists in this one building will lock their studios and go to the other building. So then you start meeting all of the other artists. And I've become really dear friends with some of these people just because I've been looking at your art and I'm so glad to meet you. And then they come look at yours, and we're all following each other on social, and I have a lead here. And so it's, again, another really warm community, kind of like the music industry. But I mean, there's going to be the snobs in all of it.
But it's cool because like with music, you can jam with each other. You're not usually painting with each other. So the art walk, that kind of sounds like a cool way to integrate without, because you're never going to, not never. I do have friends that will do collaborative paintings, but it's not very common compared to like music.
Correct. And I have always said that being an artist is sort of an isolating career unless you're in art school. But that's what's different about this cultural center, because we don't have to be working together, but your studio door is open. And if you need to step away from what you're working on, you walk around and pop in and chat with people all the time, or good. Watch the progression. Like my suite mate is just got a big show at Plato Art Center. And so all of us are cheering her on. Like, this is what she's done this so far. And she'll come in and say, what do you think about this? How do you like those colors? And so it is collaborative in that sense.
Yeah.
And it's very helpful.
God, really helpful. Because again, like, I mean, I've talked to a couple artists, and like, like one was saying how at the beginning he's in his apartment and he has like a couple of years before anyone was like, you're really good at this. Like, he didn't even know.
Exactly.
Because everybody's always their worst critic. And, and like you were saying before, it's like an artist that's working on their own probably needs someone like you even more, because they're probably even like the confidence level has to be there to put yourself out there. Right. I mean,
correct. And I think it's even more difficult with a visual artist, because with a musician or a filmmaker, they are out there. There's an audience. And with art, you can just be putting things out there and having no idea if anybody's looking at it. So I not without being paid, I do use those skills to help my artist community. Like, here's the website. Let's do this. Let's get a logo.
But it's so cool that you can do that, because it's like these are your people in a way, and like you have these. It's like you're like, here, I can help all of you a little bit, and then you can do what you will with it. But that's cool,
right? And they are more reluctant, but also, I got a website. Maureen, come look at my website. So it's, I mean, yeah, it's great. It really is. I'm very, very. It fills up, and also, I'm in a very outgoing, communicative industry with communications and project management, especially. But I'm really an introvert. So I get really I mean, I'm not shy. I'm confident. I can call anybody, but I get really worn out. Yeah. So I really need to go into that studio. I try to do 3 days a week. So Saturday, Sunday, and try to get a weekday where I can just close my door and listen to my podcast and just paint and paint and paint and paint. It fills me back up so I can do both. It's really more important than I even ever realized.
Yeah. I mean, I can relate more than ever with the like, oh, I'm out and I love being out. And I'm like, okay, I've just literally hit my limit.
Yes.
I need to go away now. Something that we brushed over probably because maybe you don't realize how amazing it is that you were a stay-home mom for how long? And then now you've got like this great career and you're, highly respected, and it's just, it's inspiring. I'm sure there's a lot of freshly divorced people, especially single mothers who this is going to be cool. I mean, is there, like, I don't even know what to ask about it other than to just acknowledge it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Like I said, it was terrifying / thrilling because it was a really metamorphosis. Is that the word I would use? It was, my sister said, it's almost as if you were wrapped in cellophane and the cellophane is coming off. So it's scary, but amazing. Like, oh, wow, I can see now. And like, look at all, like everything was brighter and colder and hotter and louder. And it was just I was just in this cocoon of raising my children and doing really not with my people. You're with your other school moms. Nothing against my school mom friends, but
yeah, but it's
they were not touching my creative spots at all.
Yeah, you didn't choose those people. That was your
right, and you have to do that because your kids are hanging out at their houses, so that's what happens.
Sure.
So it was really, and probably it was the timing happened for that reason. Probably when my last one left, I realized, oh, this is not even who I am. I don't even know who I am. So that's maybe what happened. And then losing both my parents makes you put your chin up and say, okay, this is a short deal. This whole life thing, we need to be clear on what we're focusing on, what we really want. So, and again, then I had so much support, and I would say to my kids, I don't know what I'm doing when I was trying to like work at the label. My kids were like, but you actually are doing it. You're doing it.
Right.
So just keep the voices down. Just silence that voice for a minute and just keep going. And I had to. And at that point, fear is a great motivator.
Oh, yes.
And really, I mean, not to be so full of cliches, but failure was not an option. I had to work.
Right.
I had to work. And
Right.
no one was going to hire me. I mean, the resume was laughable. HR wants like historical, what this has been.
Sure.
Going.
What were
And
you
I was
doing for
like,
these decades? And
and I was like, dude, I've been just winging it. But I had a lot of wisdom and I had a few skills that, somebody in corporate America probably wouldn't consider I could do. But a fledgling, underpaying record label was like, sure, we'll take you.
yeah. And I mean, worked out fantastic.
It worked out great. I wouldn't be sitting here without that record label. Definitely.
I was looking at your client list. A couple of connections. It's funny. The Studio Movie Grill used to do an open mic, and like when I first moved here to Texas, I was doing the one in Denton, and I was like,
I didn't know that they did that.
Yeah, it was.
How fun!
It was weird. It was fun, but like I had to drive to Denton in rush hour, and I had to bring all my own gear. But for me, I mean, I'm a musician, but I'm a singer-songwriter with bands usually, or in the past. I'm not doing it now. And so, but like I had to fill the whole time, and I didn't know anyone in Denton, so I would end up having to play like for 3 hours. So
in the theater?
Like outside in the lobby.
Oh,
like,
okay.
It's like I was trying to draw people in.
Sure.
And, and there was a couple of bands that were local, and when they would come, it would be amazing. And then a friend of mine, I let him take it over, and that's when I switched over and I started doing it at Deep Lamar Company. But just kind of a random connection.
I don't know if that Studio Movie Girl did that in Dallas, did they? Was that just a Denton thing because
They
of the
did
music
it
scene?
in Denton, and there was another location, but not Dallas. No,
I don't remember that.
Yeah,
So a friend of mine used to run the marketing over there.
Oh, okay.
So I did project work for them. That was another kind of funny project work. Like they wanted to do activations regarding a movie. So we're going to draw people in the lobby, give away free tickets. So I would create those kind of events. That's another kind of weird thing that we should do. And then we would do a video about it to promote it on social media. So now that everybody's got phones, I mean, that was another thing I was doing with State Fair Records is I had a camera. I didn't have anything else to do, so I shot every show.
Oh, wow.
And we'll put your music video together. And I mean, I'm producing in quotes, like pulling it all together. It's all the same thing. Just like producing a festival is like producing a video. It's just make sure all your people are in line kind of and are under budget.
Right.
So that we were doing all of that, which was, I mean, made it so fun and also touching all the aspects of it. I felt like I had a real grasp on it and learned so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool. It's true. Some of these skills really translate, and like your understanding of one thing really translates over to the other thing. And production is just a microcosm of a lot of other types of.
I had a client say to me one time, "You are good at landing those planes." So following somebody for example, like Edwin Cabinis around, it's like following Steve Jobs. Like their ideas are flying at you like a tennis ball machine, but I'm trying to grab them and make something out of it. Like I like building things, and so, but I don't necessarily have these great ideas, but I can help capture those ideas and make that happen for somebody. That's kind of what I feel like my skill is.
It's a good skill. People need it.
Especially artistic types.
Yeah, because they have all these ideas, but like putting them out there together, I mean, that's not in a song form, you know?
Right. And also they're, you know, it's a double-edged sword with artists because there's a lot of like self-doubt, and sometimes there's mental, you know, they're not oversensitive, but they're hypersensitive, or they're, you know, it's rough. And also when there's, you know, you're about to go to Europe and then a pandemic hits, or, you know, you're going to go on Jimmy Fallon and somebody gets COVID. It's like the things that go wrong, they're just like that.
Oh yeah.
So they really need somebody to just say, it's okay, get back on the bike. Jimmy Fallon will come back around. We'll figure this out. You know, it's
right.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I briefly dated a publicist in LA, and she had Sandra Bullock, Eric Roberts, and Andy Dick.
Oh, wow.
So Sandra was easy, but I can't even tell you the stories of the calls that would come in on that.
See,
I feel like a Hollywood publicist is such a different animal.
Right.
Like, I feel like your job description is you need to be prepared to lie for everybody. I don't think that's what you do, but I feel like that's what they were doing. You know?
No, and I'm working with a really great publicist in Nashville right now, and she is so, what is the word? She's so positive. I mean, I'm sure she's rolling her eyes because it's a phone call. But she just doesn't really get rattled. Like, you have to have a lot. That's a skill set right there.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. I mean, again, with the egos, especially you're dealing with, and then you have to deal with normal people in the real world and
Right.
connect the two.
Yeah. Like a journalist is very different than a big rock star.
Oh,
like
yeah.
different personalities, and we have to put those people together.
Yeah. I mean, they don't pay you enough.
Right.
Is there anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to talk about?
I don't think the only other thing that was interesting that we did was Eric Nadell's book. Are you a baseball fan?
Uh-huh.
So Eric Nadell is the voice of the Texas Rangers.
Okay, yeah,
He's
yeah.
been calling that game. He's been calling the Rangers games for over 40 years.
Oh, wow.
Maybe 45 now? Getting
Okay.
close. And he's a friend of mine. And we met through the music industry. That was another person that Trey Johnson introduced me to. So at the beginning, it was probably about 2016 when the Rangers were really bad. I mean, we've had bad summers.
Still kind of.
This was rough.
Yeah.
It was 2 managers ago. And so Eric calls the games, and he started doing 7th inning limericks because he's a limerick writer.
Huh.
He's kind of a nerd, that's what I love about him. So he writes these limericks. So he started doing 7th inning limericks to keep people listening to the game, because at that point they've turned off 4th inning, they're out. So that was kind of his plan. So he did it all season, and then he called me and said, I think I'm going to put that in a book. I think I'm going to do a limerick book. I was like, great idea. That's such a great idea. Great. They're going to call it Lim Eric. Great idea. So he said, I need an illustrator. And I was like, oh, I have the perfect illustrator for you. I really do. And I did. So I put them together. Art Man, this great illustrator, sort of animated, cartoony.
What a great name, too.
Yes. Arthur is his name. He goes by Art Man. Arthur James. And Arthur happened to be a huge baseball fan. So he already has all these cool illustrations, stylized illustrations of baseball players. So I was like, Eric, Arthur, Eric, and then sent them on their way. And then like a month later, I get this call like, Maureen, can you come help us? Because again, 2 creative people, they could not make that work. And Arthur's like, Eric is texting me limericks, and I'm trying to, and Arthur would say, yes, I'll illustrate that. Yes. So you can't text limericks to people. We have to have like a situation, we have to have
a meeting or something.
We have to have a document to start. Let's do a document. And then Arthur, you can't say yes to everything. You have to be choosy about. So it was a mess and so fun. So we got that book, and he went through the foundation. So all the money went to the Rangers Foundation, but it was crazy, but so fun to work on a book. I had never done that before.
We can add translator to your job description.
And then, of course, he had a big party at the Kessler, and because he has a big birthday party over there and great shows. And so, yeah, anyway, that was kind of a cool project.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, Maureen, thanks so much for coming over and sitting down with me. We'll be looking for your projects and your art, and we'll have all those links available. But thanks again for coming by.
Thank you for having me. Thanks, Andrew.
I'd like to thank my guest, Maureen Womack. You can check the links for Rabbit Hat Promotions as well as her art. Theme song, Celine Nurala with Unstoppable. You can check out the Dallas Famous podcast on Deep Ellum Radio every Sunday and Tuesday at 1 o'clock. And then a couple weeks later, we put them all on the podcast platforms. Thanks for listening. We hope to have you back.